As I'm doing this, I'm getting some nice breeze on my face, and it's excellent, actually, because it's quite hot in here.
Andrew's, for those of you podcast neighbors listening home, Andrew's acting like a moron.
I'm flapping my porpoise wings at my face. And as I say that out loud, I realize it doesn't make me sound less like a moron. It actually makes it sound real weird because I'm sort of breaking up the air coming into my ears. So it's sort of like when you, do that...
Are you quite finished?
That Indian thing over your mouth. I don't want to call it that Indian thing, but...
Well, don't worry, this is all getting edited.
Oh. Okay.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I've always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you.
Well, it's another beautiful day in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.
Yeah, it is. Which is a good thing, too, because we're not going inside this week.
We're not going inside of his house.
Yeah.
Yeah, we stay exclusively outside. It's episode 1475 of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Wow, that's a big number.
It certainly is.
It's Friday, the last of this week of Makes an Opera.
I'm Steven.
I'm Andrew.
And we have a special guest today.
What? We do where? Oh, I didn't even see you come in.
Oh, hello.
It's Esther Plant.
Our sister.
Mr. Rogers told us in the last episode that the next episode, he basically said, we've got a lot of production value going into the next episode, so please convince the rest of your family to watch.
So we did.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a method to your madness.
Yeah, there is. So welcome, guest. How did you enjoy Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood for the first time?
Yeah, you've never seen Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood before.
Have you seen Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
That's a good question.
I mean, long years ago.
Okay.
It was nothing
Just
like
like us.
I remember.
I mean, this is a weird episode.
Yeah,
It's
we
very
don't really
strange.
spend any time with Mr. Rogers himself. It
No.
just skips straight into the opera, which the 4 episodes preceding this has all been in anticipation and preparation for this opera.
Yeah, they
There
were.
was 4 episodes build up to that.
Yeah. For the whole week, they've been talking about who's going to play who. They've been thinking, well, what's the plot of the opera going to be? Reardon didn't even show up
Wow.
until day 3.
Yeah, he's the Royal Opera Man. He played
Yeah.
the TV anchor.
TV newsman, wearing just the sweater that they got him to commemorate his arrival.
It's a regular bunch of kids at home all summer.
Yeah, it really is.
pretty much. I mean, it's well, I guess we should. Mr. Rogers comes in. We get a short version of the theme song.
It's a beautiful day, not in my neighborhood, but for an opera this time. He sings.
Yeah. I forgot how the lyrics go, but the gist of it is, it's a beautiful day for an opera. Let's
do
make
that.
an opera. We made an opera. The end.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
then
a verse and a half.
straight into a news broadcast.
Yeah, straight into the opera. First we get the it's very PBS really, because Mr. Rogers sits down on his porch swing. He sort of talks about what operas are and gives sort of a summary of the opera. It's very much like, I'm a professor of art. Today we're going to talk about Carmen, and these are the themes, and it was written by such and such and so and so.
Right, he gives you a quick rundown.
It's
of the plot.
a very it feels like a Masterpiece Theater sort of arrangement. And then there's an announcer that announces the opera. It says it's presented by the Royal O-Room Opera Company.
Yeah, King Friday has mentioned like the K room.
Yeah.
He says, let's go to the K room, and it says this is the Royal O-Room Opera. So I'm guessing he just has like an alphabet of rooms in his castle.
Yeah, I
for
think so.
Operas, and K stands for,
I remember
don't know,
seeing
kingly duties.
It's in some episode from my youth. I remember seeing inside of some room that is just full of, I want to say, like bird cages and stuff.
The B room.
Maybe that was the B room. Yeah, they were looking for something. So that was interesting. And immediately we discover it is light opera because there's talking.
Right.
This isn't pure opera, and it starts with a lot of news broadcast heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the main settings of this opera is a newsroom. And I would say one of the big themes of this episode is integrity in reporting and integrity in advertising.
It's a very... I wish I had the cultural references, because this feels like a number of sort of like 80s movies about news, like news radio. I think that's a sitcom. But it's very... deep down, it's just a story about a hummingbird trying to make it in the news world.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's singing... The opening song is about how there's never any trouble in Bubbleland. There's a nice line in that song about keep on blowing bubbles and keep the ones you earn.
Yeah, so I guess their currency is bubbles?
I guess.
But also, she had a stand she was selling bubbles from.
Oh, so do you pay for bubbles with
bubbles?
Different bubbles?
I mean...
Or maybe the bubble stand... She said she was a bubble salesman, but maybe she's more like a banker.
Maybe. And we never see anybody else blow any bubbles.
In which case, is this kind of a story of like a economy crash?
Yeah. Everybody loves bubbles, but apart from the bubble lady, as portrayed in this opera by Mrs. Prolificate,
right?
Nobody actually blows any bubbles. They're just around.
True. They just sort of... I mean, it's Bubbleland, so...
I mean, yeah, fair enough. It is Bubbleland.
So
Also, bubbles wear sweaters?
Yeah, they... as we were developing this opera throughout the week, basically anything any character suggested got used.
Yeah.
You see.
And so any sort of off-the-wall, like, well, maybe we're making a sweater for the opera guy, maybe the bubbles could have sweaters. And they're like, yes, it's in.
Yeah.
Right then.
Yeah, which we never see a bubble sweater.
No,
we actually only ever see the one sweater which Lady Aberlin is wearing.
Yes, the Bubble Factory manager, Betty
Aberlin, yeah.
Who interrupts the news broadcast.
Yeah. That was... So there's the top story of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to worry about in Bubbleland.
Yeah, everything.
Second story.
Never any trouble.
Is, hey, there's this great new product by the company that sponsors our news broadcast.
Yeah, the news broadcast is sponsored by a corporation that uses the news to...
National Chemical Bubble Company or something.
National Bubble.
And they basically have...
The NBCO.
They basically have aerosol bubble
sweaters.
Bubble sweaters, yeah. It's a spray can that you spray and ostensibly bubble sweaters come out. This whole aerosol... First of all, as soon as I saw that aerosol can, I was like, this is the episode I remember.
Yeah, I also... he's been claiming that he knew what episode this was, that he remembered it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like this whole aerosol angle, this is why I wasn't sure, because this aerosol angle has come out of nowhere.
Yeah, they didn't really talk about that.
There was no talk about spray cans.
That was probably just an idea that someone mentioned in the last second, and then they had to rewrite the whole thing.
And also, it's a very 80s storyline, because, and I've said this a couple times, the 80s was all about aerosol cans and how they're going to mess up the climate.
Right.
And in a very roundabout, oblique way, that's what this is about, but for different reasons.
Yeah, so the manager of the sweater factory, which manufactures sweaters in the traditional knitting way, not a factory really,
just one lady.
No,
just one lady.
It's
who's very
it's
good
a
at
cottage
names.
industry.
Yeah,
she straight up hijacks this commercial, pirate radio style.
She'd say that it's a fraud.
She broke into this studio.
Yeah.
Starts talking about how this is a sham. These are just cans of air. And she says, she has a line in there about how I have a right to check the competition.
Uh-huh.
You absolutely do not have a right to... I mean, that's called industrial espionage.
Right, but if it's already being sold and advertised.
I mean, yeah, but that still doesn't justify hijacking a news broadcast.
No, she's definitely renegade.
To sell her things. And she does...
But it's kind of cool, like, oh, we're going to hijack this thing to get out the truth. But also there is, like, a monetary incentive, like, I'm just trying to save my own business.
She's like, oh, I'm the competition, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as revolutionary, I guess, as it could be. So I forget how exactly they get her off. They just sort of throw to the weather report.
Yeah, which is a porpoise.
Yeah, while they're throwing to the weather report, Lady Aberlin does this nice bit where she like sort of mimes out, is like,
oh yeah, she
Don't
sees
buy
one of
this.
the cameras, one of the news cameras, and she like waves into it, and then like points at the can and says no.
and she points at her sweater and she's like, yeah, buy my sweaters.
That was definitely an ad lib, I feel.
That was a fun bit. So we throw to the weather porpoise.
Mm-hmm.
This costume, I didn't notice this till the end, but it's got sort of like flared cuffs at the bottom to give it sort of a porpoise fin, but it's just sort of wearing extreme bell bottoms. So this is sort of the reprise of There's Never Any Trouble in Bubbleland.
Yeah, there's never
This time
any
it's about how great the weather
barometric
is.
trouble in Bubbleland either.
Yeah.
But I guess
The wind never moves.
there's a weather person and a remote correspondent weather person.
I don't know if she's a remote correspondent weather person or just the remote correspondent.
Oh,
But yeah, Hildegard Hummingbird
is the remote
pops in
correspondent.
and says, "Oh, there is trouble coming to Bubbleland because my friend's in Rockland."
Yeah,
Where there is sometimes, I guess, trouble in Rockland.
where they're currently having a rock opera.
Yeah, it's just Fred Penner's friend.
Yeah, I collect rocks.
Yeah, exactly.
That'll be on Tumblr.
That's a
We have a
deep.
Tumblr.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
You should really check it out.
Okay.
It's pleasewon'tyoubemmy.tumblr.com.
yeah.
Now I don't have to say that at the end of the show.
Well, yeah. So Hildegard Hummingbird's the new correspondent and is immediately fired.
No, she quits.
Oh, that's true. They can't fire her.
They
She
tell her,
quits.
"Oh no, that's a preposterous idea that there could be trouble in Bubbleland."
And she immediately bails on them.
She says, "Well, if I
Yeah.
can't tell the truth, I'm leaving,
I'm out
and
of
not
there."
just this news station. I'm leaving
Yeah,
the entire
Bubbleland.
land."
yeah. They do wait. They do like they put on a good face until they're off the air, and then they're like, "We can't have a windstorm," because that's what she says. There's a windstorm coming.
Yeah,
To Bubbleland, and it's going to blow all those bubbles about. Then we cut to Captain Brockett
on the banana
of
boat.
the banana boat.
What you need to know is Chef Brockett, Mr. Rogers' neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
showed Mr. Rogers how to make something, not a banana boat as we know it, but something that he calls a banana boat, which is a banana with pretzels stuck through it.
And and a piece of bread wrapped around it and some peanut butter. It's a disaster.
Sounds awful.
It doesn't look good or
And-
good to eat.
And so I guess they decided he ought to be captain of a banana boat.
He was real into banana boats that day.
Yes, that day in his neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah, so I like his outfit here, though. It's very 17th century naval captain.
I was really impressed by this set
He's got the
for a show
bicorn.
that's been using the same set for 20
Yeah.
years.
What was the budget on this? Because they have built, like, this sort of dock set
This is like their second set.
combined with the new set is completely on par with what they've been using for the Land of Make-Believe this entire time.
Yeah.
And, like, they're never using it again. It's not like there's the harbor of Make-Believe.
No.
They built this and then they had to tear it. Like, the boat rocks. It's a whole thing. There's a roof you can stand on. It's quite...
There's a roof you can stand on?
There's a roof that the wind later comes in.
Oh,
Those are
right.
spoilers for those watching along
Well, we
as
knew
they
the
listen.
wind would come.
That's true. Hildegard Hummingbird stops in to say goodbye to the captain.
With a...
She's got a bindle stick,
both.
over her shoulder, which is a nice touch.
All of her earthly possessions. And then the bubble seller comes through, whose name is either Tresa or Tracer.
It might have been Teresa.
I don't know.
Chef Brockett's kind of hard to understand because he talks like
Yeah.
this.
Also,
It's Tracer.
with his sideburns, I got real, like, this is a monkey vibe off of him.
Like, this is not a human?
He just had real heavy, thick
Well,
sideburns.
banana boat.
And
Are
he
you-
was always surrounded by bananas. I mean, if anything, he looks like the monkey from Pirates: A Brand of Misfits from the Artman Productions. And I mean, to be fair, he did play a monkey. I researched he played a monkey in the opera about the organ grinder.
Yeah.
He was the titular monkey's uncle. That opera was
Mm.
called A Monkey's Uncle. It was about a monkey and his uncle.
Who is also a monkey.
Gee.
So they could have shortened the movie title to A Monkey.
Yeah,
Couple of monkeys.
yeah, but that's not funny.
Mrs. Prolificate, who plays Tracer, we're going to say,
Okay, fine. The bubble lady.
sings Forever Blowing Bubbles, which we mentioned earlier in the week.
Oh, does she?
Yeah, she sings "I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles," and I wouldn't have even known it except that you mentioned it, and so I looked it up to put it on the Tumblr.
Oh, is it the same song?
Yeah.
How did I completely not? I guess I don't know that song that well.
I listened to it a few times for the Tumblr, so.
Huh. So here's a thing that was bugged, because one of the things that the captain, I don't know if we ever get the captain's name.
His name is Captain B.
Okay.
B for Brocket or B for Banana.
So Captain B is sort of one of the other people who is concerned a bit about the weather, because he says he saw a wave out there.
How does he...
And heaven forbid his sailboat have wind.
Yeah, how has he been operating this whole time if there has apparently never been a wind or waves in Bubbleland? How does he move all his bananas about?
Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he has a banana farmer in Bubbleland, and he's just been waiting for years. For 2,000 years is how long it's been since there's been any wind.
Oh, I missed that detail.
Yeah, it's been 2,000 years. I think that was a lyric in one of the songs. Yeah.
So the last wind that this had was as Christ was dying on the cross and the temple curtain was being torn.
Yeah, that was the last time there's any wind in Bubbleland.
Yeah.
This is their, I don't know, judgment.
I guess. And then the porpoise shows up and he's in the water doing some soundings, I guess. He's checking the weather.
Which is what I predicted
in the
last episode. I said that the porpoise was probably the weatherman because he could be so far away in the ocean that he could predict what weather was coming.
And Captain B points out this wave and he says, I'm going to go see how big it is. That was like his big finish to that song.
I don't even remember it.
And then we're in the corporate offices of National
Bubble Chemical
the Bubble Chemical Company.
Uh-huh.
The newsman, what was his name?
Robert Redgate.
Right, Robert Redgate, not Robert Redford.
No,
but that had to be on purpose. And
Robert Redgate and Betty the.
I just called her Betty Sweaters.
Betty the Better Sweater Manager. Factory manager. I don't know.
I just, like I said, in my notes, she's just Betty Sweaters.
They show up at the National Bubble Corporation to confront the bigwigs about this fraudulent bubble sweater aerosol.
And it's Handyman Joe Negri in the greatest evil mustache.
Yes.
Yeah, he turns around in his chair and he looks real good and evil. He kind of looks like Harvey Korman.
His name is Mr.
W.I. Norton Donovan.
Oh, yes. And he,
which canny viewers will already see where this is going. And also people who were here yesterday when Joe Negri said, I think I want to be the wind in this opera.
Yeah, until yesterday, Joe Negri thought he was going to be a bubble, and then he just, on a whim, decided to be the wind.
Yeah.
So this would have been a very different opera were it not for his last-minute decision.
Yeah, it would be. So they confront him about, hey, these cans of sweater stuff are just full of air.
Right. And
he cops to it almost immediately.
He says it's our trick. Hee hee. You're the first people to figure it out.
Yeah.
I think Lady Aberlin does a great job with her number in this scene. The reprise of "It's a fraud, it's a fraud." All that's in these cans is air. All that's in these cans is air.
Yeah. I like how proud Redgate was, because they're like, yeah, it was just a joke. You figured it out. And he's like, Eyewitness News was there first. And it like cuts to him and he gets his lower third.
Oh, I missed that.
Which Robert Redgate, Eyewitness News or Bubble Witness News. I Bubble Witness News. I've forgotten a lot of details, and I'm warning you right now, my notes stop well before the episode does, because stuff just kept happening, and I lost track and got excited.
So after Robert Redgate and
Betty Sweaters,
Betty the Better Sweater Factory
I'm calling it Betty Sweaters. It's fun to say.
Leave W.I.
Norton Donovan
reveals himself to be the wind.
Yeah.
And that the aerosol sweaters were just a ploy to get you to spray your bubbles with the wind so they would blow away.
His reveal scene is great. First of all, the song that he sings, I mean, we don't get a title for it, but the first line, and I hope the title is Now I Can Be My Initials, which is great. And then, yeah, he ducks into this giant aerosol can they have and busts through the side. And he's
terrifying costume.
He's wearing a whole bunch of tinsel.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he flies.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's the wind.
And because we imagined it.
He's the wind or whatever. That's pretty good. Yeah, the whole... Because, I mean, this is an interesting take on... Because I'm sure this was inspired by, like, aerosols were messing up the ozone layer.
Oh, I see.
And it was bad. This is sort of a very simplified take on it's like, well, there's all that air in there. And blowing that air out is just going to create wind. I mean, that's not... But whatever. I guess it works.
So at this point, we're back at the docks, and there's just a lot of wind.
There's a whole lot of wind.
Captain B is experiencing so much wind, and he's saying, "Oh, I'm losing all my bananas," and then he picks up one and throws it off.
Yeah.
Because he's like, "Oh, the wind effect isn't being as dramatic enough. Let me help it along by throwing my cargo overboard."
The wind is blowing over all my bananas as he's, like, shoving them around.
Yeah.
Sort of trying to make it look like he's trying to hold on to them, but clearly he's just trying to make it look like they're blowing
Captain
around.
B has found a great opportunity to save his business by cashing in on insurance.
Yeah. That's an act of God. I don't think that's covered.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. There's never any trouble in Bubbleland. Maybe the insurance companies are covering everything. Oh, one thing we sort of missed it in the when in Betty Sweaters' reprise of "It's a Fraud."
Mm-hmm.
There's a bit in there about how there's nothing in these cans but air. There's nothing you need to make a sweater. There's no skill that you need to make a sweater. There's no heart.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, this is more of Mr. Rogers' pro-labor Marxist leanings.
Right.
Yeah, you can't just automate this process. Mr. Rogers would not stand for it. That's a good bit. So yeah, the wind is going crazy. Bubble ladies' bubbles are all getting blown away, which is much more plausible than these bananas getting thrown overboard.
And they realized that they were wrong to send away Hildegard.
Do they realize that, or do the news people realize that? Because then we get to
the porpoise shows up and...
Oh, yeah, right, because he was part of that whole shunning.
Yeah. They all just feel bad.
Another thing, and this is way back at the top of the episode, but Betty was real quick to get on board with these people on hating on Hildegard. Like, she comes here illegally to destroy the broadcast and undermine this aerosol sweater company.
Right.
But as soon as Hildegard shows up, she's like right there with him. Is like, get out of here! You're ruining everything. So she changes sides pretty quickly there.
Well, I mean, the sweater factory also makes its money on the basis of happiness.
it's consistent with her momotivations, but it's an interesting. Like, she's immediately in the club.
She's accepted into it, too, despite having overthrown the commercials.
Despite having no business being there.
Yeah, they're really a team now. Her and the person she set out to dethrone.
Yeah. So then there's a special news broadcast saying this aerosol bubble is a fraud. So if you have some, don't push that button on top. And then they start fielding millions of calls from people who have already pushed that button.
Robert Redgate's news desk has 6 telephones.
Bubble phones. They've all got bubbles over where the dial would be.
Oh, I see.
That was fun.
Really, they should hire another person at the news.
Yeah,
so that it's not
they
the man.
did. She quit.
I guess, yeah. But now they've got, they have Betty Sweaters.
Yeah, she's just here on a strictly
unprofessional
basis. Yeah, exactly.
She came with a complaint, and then she stayed around to be friends.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Hildegard Hummingbird catches wind of this news broadcast.
Aha, pun.
And says, "Why should I save them?"
Yeah, she's watching the news on her pretty cool color TV.
Yeah,
in her really cool bird flower nest.
She's like, "What do I need? I came with a bindle stick to this unnamed country.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get myself a good hummingbird garden, and I'm gonna get myself a
big old
color
TV.
CRT, so that I can watch the news of my old friends who I don't like
news
anymore."
That fired me after one broadcast. She quit. But she decides to come back not for the bubbles, but for the people.
Yeah.
For the feelings.
For the feelings.
Because of the feelings, she wanted to come back.
Daniel Tiger, one of the school children of the Land of Make-Believe, decided that people like bubbles more than they like people. but hummingbirds like people more than
Right.
she likes bubbles.
Yeah, this was all Daniel Tiger. He
Yeah.
was sitting there in the backstage, just so
He's
happy
like,
to see his
he
words
really
up on
piecing together
the screen.
a thought web of
Yeah, I'm
motivations
sad
for these
he wasn't
characters.
in here. I feel
Yeah,
like we
the
need
king
more
wasn't in here either.
Daniel Tiger. I mean, that stands to reason.
I thought he was going to be.
He's producing the whole thing.
The whole idea was so that he could have a big bubble around his balcony, which he never got.
No, the whole idea was that he wanted an opera. The bubble around his balcony was just another flight of fancy he had. He has a lot of
Immediately was
ideas.
distracted.
Bear in mind, this is the king who's like, I think I'd like a waterfall. Let's build one right there. And then they do, and it's there for years until they get rid of it because it's terrible.
They're trying to convince Hildegard Hummingbird to save them, and then she's like downplaying her ability. She's like, well, I'm the smallest bird. They're like, yeah, but you can flap your wings 60 times per second.
Yeah.
Just
And you're very friendly. And love sweet
having a
things and
battle,
colorful things.
a battle of the hummingbird facts.
Yeah. Which you don't go in against a hummingbird in a battle of hummingbird facts, but
Yeah,
I guess unless truth is on your side.
So who suggests building a wall? Oh, Hildegard Hummingbird says we have to build a wall.
Does Hildegard Hummingbird say
Yeah.
build a
Yeah,
wall?
she
I
does.
thought I thought
It's
they
her
were.
instructions before she comes. to
Oh, okay.
save them.
She says.
Is she talking to the TV?
Yes, they're having a conversation through the TV.
Yeah.
Or it must be a Skype call then.
I missed it. They were definitely like waiting for her to react, but I missed the part where she actually said, "Oh, you should build a wall," and they heard her.
Yeah, no, I thought it was like King Friday was building the wall in the first week's episodes, and now it's building a wall.
Yeah. So they build a wall. We make some obvious Trump jokes.
Yeah, that's
Their wall is built out of banana crates and
Yeah.
oars.
they just what can we build a wall out of? Well, we've got a lot of banana crates, the things which have primarily been victim to being blown around by the wind.
Yeah,
This
and which
seems
are
like-
mostly full of yellow crepe paper.
Tissue paper, yeah.
Yeah. And they throw a couple oars up, sort of leaning on it to help it stay up, and they park the bubble cart behind it.
Their windshield wall to save the town is about 8 feet long and 5 feet tall.
Yeah. There's a great action knitting scene, though.
Yes, Betty Sweaters says, well, I'll knit a sweater to hold it all together. And then she just like,
Just whips out some
Yeah.
netting.
and then
There's
she just
some
makes
good
a
action close-ups of her knitting.
really fast.
Real-
and then
real
she just
dramatically.
makes a giant fishing net.
Yeah, she knits a giant cargo net and throws it over the crates, and that's their wall, they decide.
Mm-hmm.
And then the wind shows up, and he flies in and lands on the roof and terrorizes them for a bit.
And then Hildegard Hummingbird convinces them that they need to stop focusing on saving the bubbles because you can blow more bubbles, but you can't blow more you.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty
That
good.
was my favorite moment.
And then the wind shows up, and they have like a wind off, basically.
Yeah, he does like Hildegard Hummingbird,
The one person who can stop me.
and then she says, "That is who I happen to be."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And she, like, the wind knows that she has left, but doesn't know that she's come back.
Right.
So he thinks I wonder if
she's
this
the
was
only person that can
somehow
stop
a
him.
complicated part of his plan. Maybe she fed the news to the windstorm in Rockland to Hildegard Hummingbird so that she would leave town.
Who fed the news?
The WI, the
Oh,
wind.
you think that?
Maybe this was all part of his conspiracy because he knows that this particular hummingbird is the only one who can stop him. I mean, to be fair, she's probably the biggest hummingbird in the universe.
That's true. Probably a hummingbird of that size would cause quite a gust, moving its wings at 60 times per second.
Yeah, so fast they look like they're standing still on these
As
cameras.
fast as a good video game's frame rate.
Yeah. So they sort of flap each other off, and the wind is like, oh,
They're just flapping each other off left and right.
yeah. They're well, no, that's even worse. The wind is blowing at her, and she's flapping back.
Yeah.
And eventually
It's supposed to solve things.
Yeah, that seems like it would just create a cyclone.
Yeah.
I mean, if your aim's real good, maybe. I mean, it worked because the wind ends up real tired out, but also Hildegard Hummingbird is real tired out.
And so she suggests, hey, you bystanders, Why don't you try flapping your own wings?
Yeah, none of them have wings is why. So she sort of like collapses on the ground and they do some real haphazard flapping.
Yeah, a lot of different interpretations of that flap.
Yeah.
We've got... What?
I like how quickly the bubble salesman just is like, oh yes, this is what will save the day.
Yeah.
As soon as Hildegard starts suggesting it, she's like, yes, I will flap my hands.
I mean, Hildegard, Lady Elaine Fairchild, had the acting chops to really pull this off and make it believable as a thing that can combat the wind.
Uh-huh.
But when you see these other people doing it, just are like, no, you're just... I mean, the captain's just waving.
Yeah, Reardon was like, had very rigid wings and was kind of moving at the shoulder but not at the elbow.
The porpoise has real limited movement anyways.
Betty Averlin was kind of doing like wiggly noodle arm waves. So they successfully defeat the wind. He leaves, I guess. Yeah, he was spoiled.
I missed that
He
part.
got blown away by the power of
flapping.
Questionable aerodynamics.
Yeah, friendship. And then they're like, oh, thank you, Hildegard Hummingbird. But alas, Hildegard Hummingbird is dead.
Yeah, they just cut to this dead bird.
Yeah. And it looks astonishingly like just a dead bird.
Yeah, just lying on the ground.
Lying on the ground. Lady Aberlin, or Lady Elaine Fairchild's eyes, she has like closed eyes.
Oh yeah, I never thought about that.
Which is unusual. Usually her eyes are painted on and open.
And so they sing kind of the final song.
Yeah, they pick her up and sing this song to her.
Hildegard, brave Hildegard.
Yeah. What do you expect from an opera? A happy ending?
Well, Hildegard Hummingbird, true to a children's show, comes back to life.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers less edgy than Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
Although Bugs Bunny also not dead at the end of that opera, I suppose.
Yeah.
Or is he dead, but, it's complicated.
Doesn't aside anyways.
It's some of that whole double fiction of Looney Tunes.
So Hildegard Hummingbird comes back to life.
Yeah.
And
there's that classic bit.
It's clear that she was faking the whole time just so that people would praise her.
There's that classic bit where they're like singing the song, praising her, and she's like, sing it again.
And then they start singing it again, and there's like, whoa, double take?
Yeah. Hang on, say that again. Oh, you're fine. I noticed when they were like flying her around and she was talking, I'm like, she's not really talking, her mouth's not moving. I'm like, well, her mouth never moves.
No.
But somehow when she's puppeteered, she looks more like she's talking.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the magic of puppetry, I suppose. And then Hildegard Hummingbird makes sure everybody learned a lesson.
Yeah, she quizzes everyone. Okay, what's everybody learned? I didn't come back here for you guys to be the same stupid people you were when I left.
And
so they say all the things that they learned.
The Bubble Lady has sort of the end of it, which she's sort of... bubbles are nice. People are different from bubbles. People are more important than bubbles.
One of the first things that they say that they learn is bubbles are nice, and it's like, oh boy, back at square one, aren't we?
And then the guy sings his reprise of "There's Never Any Trouble in Bubbleland," and they're like, "What? Shut up! That's clearly not true."
But he changes it.
Yeah, then it was like, there's never any trouble in Bubbleland that we can't solve together with friendship.
So, call me Hildegard, but what did you all learn from this opera?
Well, I learned my favorite moment was that I learned that although in opera you may not be able to hear it with your ears anymore, you can still remember it.
Yeah, that's how Mr. Rogers closes off the episode. He says, when you pop a bubble,
it's not there anymore,
but you can remember what you saw with your eyes.
Yeah.
When you're done listening to an opera, the opera's not there anymore, but you can remember what you heard with your ears. And when your friends aren't there anymore, you can't see them, but you still remember what they feel like.
Yeah.
What did you learn, Andrew?
What did I learn? I learned that hummingbirds are neat, I guess. I like hummingbirds.
Okay.
They're right up there with, like, cephalopods.
Well, I didn't learn
or
anything.
Snakes. Oh, I don't know. That was an option. I didn't learn anything either. I don't like hummingbirds that much. I just like Lady Elaine Fairchild. Yeah, I didn't really learn anything either. Except I learned that Mr. Rogers had a lot of production money to throw around. That office was another set, too.
Yeah.
That whole boardroom with the big windows. And
they've just been saving up their set money for 10 years.
Yeah, like what else were they shooting that they had all this money?
I don't know. I think they just had a low budget show that got really popular and therefore could ask for additional funding that they didn't really need.
PBS isn't rolling in the dough.
Anyone have any good thoughts about this episode that we haven't covered already? Who did you think gave the best performance in this opera? If you were doing a review,
I feel like Lady Aberlin.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I thought Lady Aberlin did a good job with
the Betty sweater.
Lady?
Yeah,
she did a good job exposing this fraudulent.
Yeah,
I mean, it's tempting to say Lady Elaine Fairchild, but honestly, the Hildegard Hummingbird ended up being less compelling than Lady Elaine Fairchild.
Yeah, at the beginning of the week, she was talking about how she would pop the bubbles, and it seemed like she was going to be the villain. But then she ended up being the hero, which is kind of boring.
Yeah.
Or I thought maybe she was going to teach the people of Bubbleland a lesson through, like, tough love.
Yeah.
Which she sort of did.
She was just kind of, like, above it all. Like,
I mean,
you don't want my truth? Fine, I'm leaving. You need help? Why should I help you?
I mean, that's very Lady Elaine Fairchild.
Yeah. Well, I guess that does it for not only this week of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but this entire volume of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. It was volume 1, and we've made it all the way to episode 15.
Yep. Short volumes. What was that, like 3 discs, 5 episodes each? I guess that's not bad.
But I'm thinking next week we're going to take a bit of an intermission from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Do something different.
So next week we're going to be doing an episode of Dudley the Dragon.
It's going to be pretty bad, I bet.
Man.
I hope we get one with Graham Greene in it.
I've picked out one that focuses heavily on Graham Greene.
Oh, great. Academy Award nominated Graham Greene.
For this role.
No,
he was I think
he won a Gemini.
Yeah,
which is the Canadian, but
Academy.
The Canadian Academy Award.
Right?
But he was nominated for an Academy Award for his best supporting role in Dances with Wolves.
Yes, I looked that up. The episode of Dudley the Dragon that we'll be watching is the 3rd episode in The Adventures of Dudley the Dragon. It's simply titled Mr. Krabby Tree.
Oh, great. So this is probably the introduction of Krabby the Tree.
Best and worst part of my childhood.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll have you back again as a guest.
if you really want to watch an episode of Dudley the Dragon.
I'm not sure I do, but it's that or we watch something good, which I'm worried would just be a boring podcast.
So we'll see how that goes. Oh, I should say thank you for joining us, Esther.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, well, we've never had a guest. We thought we'd try it out with our least talkative sister.
Our theme song was provided by Dan Brisbane.
Dan, the theme song man, lays his eggs in a garbage pan, goes to sleep in a frying pan. Dan, the theme song man. Wrote that one last night.
It sounds like Particle Man.
Yeah, and a little bit of that thing about the common cormorant or shag lays its eggs in a paper bag. Or also a little bit
our trolley transition
old man
was made by Rindale.
He's his supper's over and dinner's cooking. Old man Tucker just stands there looking.
We'll be back when the week is new, and we'll have more ideas for you.
You better believe it.
Andrew, I know you'll have things you'll want to talk about.
Oh, boy, will I, and you'll want to edit them out.
I will, too.
It worked.
So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you please, please, won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please, please, won't you be my podcast?
But there's nothing in this can. No, there's nothing in this can. No, there's nothing in these cans to make a sweater. No needles, no yarn, no skill of any kind to make a sweater. No heart, no spray can make a sweater. All that's in these cans is just plain air. All that's in these cans is just plain air.